Okay, I can't do that right now. Okay, so. Mm.
Hey, Courtney, can you not screen share it until you start?
Okay, sure. I was trying to see if it was going to come out properly. All right. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, I should say, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. See if I can get it to show correctly. Hopefully it's coming through properly.
It is.
All right, cool. Well, cool. You got it going. That's all I needed. I'm going to minimize everyone so I can just see what I need to see. So, I'm Courtney. I am a licensed counselor here in Illinois. I'm also a consultant and a researcher here in Illinois as well. I'm going to be presenting to you today about becoming rich and essentially talking about what the title says, like how do we become rich holistically, mind, body, and spirit. All right, so our objectives for today is to number one, I want to just examine the data and connection regarding one's financial security and their mental health. The next thing I want to do is explore and understand the dimensions of wealth and or richness, however you want to term it. Then we're going to move into exploring and understanding money attachment styles. That is a thing, if you're not aware. Next, we're going to explore and understand our own personal money story. And that's going to be something that I'm hoping I can break you out into little groups where you can kind of chat amongst yourselves and try to explore your story, but also give room to understand other people's story as well and how they kind of coincide. And then from there, I'm going to present you with some tips to recognize and understand and better regulate your mental health. Okay. If at any point there's any questions, we may need to hold them because I can't see you. I believe you can see me, but I can't see you at the moment. All right, so let's kind of jump into the data. I pulled this data as of May 1st of last year. I'm sure some of the data has shifted slightly, so I just wanted to just give knowledge of that as a researcher because I am really into the data. So I just want to acknowledge that some of the data may have shifted, but just kind of putting that out there. This is accurate as of 2025. So we have about 86 million of Americans reporting that they're struggling and in crisis with their money at this point in time. We have 53% of our population living paycheck to paycheck, while another 46% are reporting difficulty just even paying their monthly bills. We got about 32% endorsing paying bills late, while another 52% is reporting difficulty paying rent in the last 3 months. While 2/3 of Americans are planning to work beyond the retirement age of 65. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that's the retirement age is going up as well, just because people need to do more to be able to prepare to be in retirement. While we have another 33% say that they are planning to work beyond that because they have to, okay? We have a 53% of millennials endorsing that the amount of debt is greater than what they have in their savings for retirement, while another 6 out of 10 adults are reporting daily worry about money. This final stat here, we're talking about 36% of Americans reporting being distracted at work by their own personal money stress. Now, I know all of these numbers are like, it seems like a lot, right? I am a person of the numbers, but these numbers have a place in terms of where we're going with this, right? I was at the grocery store earlier, just this week, and I went in there and I get very basic stuff. I'm a vegan. So I went to get like some veggies, some produce, and a pineapple. Like pineapples are usually about what, $2, 2.50, 2.99. Pineapples are running you like $5 now, right? So it's like doubling in price. So I checked the stats again around like where are we in terms of inflation, and it's kind of being stated, oh, we're just at about 2 to 3%. Yeah, but that 2 to 3% is really at a point where people are really struggling and really feeling it. Okay. Another thing that I also pulled up in terms of the data is women are more likely to say that they're struggling than men. So we have a percentage of 41% to 25%. And what that is essentially saying is that some of this data, it may be underreported because men probably are not kind of stating like where they are with things because they're wanting to save face and not really come out in terms of where they actually are. Okay. So why does this even matter? I'm going to tell you right now as we travel into this next portion of the. So with here, I wanted to just kind of point out how this becomes a vicious cycle when we're talking about how money and mental health are intricately linked and related. So as I just explained with the numbers and the stats, that inflation has made its way, it's made its impact across the nation, right? Everybody is feeling it in some way or the other. And so what I'm saying as a clinician, and as a consultant is just a huge increase in anxiety and depression related to this. I see clients from all across the board, right? And some of the main things that I'm seeing a lot of right now is a lot of anxiety around money, money pressure, money situations about what they're going to do. Even I'm talking some of my clients who have like different positions and in higher positions, they're concerned about where things are going, what they're going to do, and what have you. Um, so I just want to draw your attention to this little cycle and the arrows that and in terms of how they follow. So when we're talking about, let's actually start right here. So when we're talking about financial difficulties, right? Financial difficulties, they cause stress and anxiety, and they're made worse by collections activity or going without the essentials. We already have a situation where someone may have some mental health issues, or they may be predispositioned to have some mental health issues. Okay. And with those things being the case, we're looking at mental health problems, making it harder to earn, manage, and make money and spending. And then it's also hard for them to ask for help. Pending what their financial situation is, they may not be able to have or afford insurance, right? They may be able to work, but not be able to afford the benefits that they may need to be able to keep themselves up. So that's something else that we have to kind of consider in this presentation as well. All right, so let's look at some concepts as it relates to this phenomenon. So I'm going to call it inflation as we kind of go through it, but it's going to kind of be synonymous with stressflation, however you want to kind of look at it. But we're going to talk about three concepts here. So what we want to talk about with inflation first is just the effects of inflation as it's been deemed, is where individuals, they're feeling stressed and they're feeling that the economic toll that is being taken on their mental health is very great at this time. And the pressure of inflation is affecting most Americans, with it being about an 83% reporting that the financial stress that's driven by the inflation and the layoffs and the rising cost of living and recession fears. So we have a good amount of people reporting that they're really concerned about this, with it being at 83%. Our Gen Z population is reporting that they're probably feeling it the most. And I'm seeing the most impact on their mental health. And not only how the data is being reported, but also what I'm actually seeing in my office in terms of Gen Z. I'm seeing a lot of that with they're really concerned and their mental health is really deteriorating because of these things. Now, we understand from the previous slide that inflation can exacerbate existing kind of mental health issues and what have you. We also have to understand that socioeconomic inequalities and things like that, that's a whole nother issue that kind of perpetuates this whole situation. as a whole. So according to some data that I pulled from AMFM, I'm sorry, 87% of respondents agree that they experience anxiety about their financial situation, right? While 79% are reporting that their increased financial anxiety has been that way since 2025. And since kind of things have shifted, where things are kind of elevating and going up, while another 70% feel anxiety about their finances more than once per week. Okay. So we had 86% of those respondents that took this whole survey. 86% of those respondents stated that, I'm sorry, they stated that essentially understanding what was happening in the economy and the uncertainty that has kind of ensued with everything, that their mental health has gotten worse, right? So what that tended to do is either it shifted them to a place of, I'm seeing a lot more anxiety, and that's kind of leading to this helplessness, that's leading to like, we're kind of going down this whole road in terms of the cycle that I mentioned before. But something that I'm also seeing with them is this kind of pendulum swing of apathy. So that's not something that's covered in the data necessarily, but that's something that I would say that I'm seeing in real life. Um, they kind of what's happening is a lot of clients are getting to the point like there's so much uncertainty. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to combat this. I don't know how to get myself out of this. I don't know what to dot dot dot. And then the pendulum kind of swings and goes into this like apathy. I don't know what to do, so I do nothing, right? Or I don't care anymore, right? So that's just something that I just wanted to bring out, like as being a clinician as well, something that I'm also seeing as I'm kind of seeing clients every week. Okay, so I've already talked about like the persistent things as we pertain to financial things, because you take that and you add on to that, like whatever your life situation is, whether you have children, whether you have whatever daily expenses, gas, utilities, families, being caregivers, all of these things being added onto your plate of all the things that are happening for you financially, and already having some issues with mental health or having a predisposition to issues with mental health. And just think about how that affects a person. And I would talk about, but I can't really get into it right now because I don't have the time. But resilience does play a factor in this in terms of what people have been through and their ability to bounce back. But that's a whole nother thing, and I want to stay within the scope of this presentation. But it's really taken a toll on people in a lot of different ways. So, what does it mean to kind of have richness? What does it mean to kind of really examine the dimensions of wealth as it pertains to everything that I'm talking about in this presentation? So, the way I'm kind of defining it out here is, what does it mean to be rich? And I'm going to talk about the dimensions that I've kind of outlined here. Now, these dimensions are not exhaustive. They are not exhaustive at all, but these are just some things that I think are important to kind of look at and take account for in your kind of daily, weekly, monthly getting along in this life. So the first one that I wanted to highlight is just this idea of mental richness, which is really the individual's ability to have a healthy mind and thought process, be able to possess intact and adaptive and well-developed cognitive abilities. And then the next thing that I highlighted was having this sense of emotional richness, which is all about the abundance and the successful management of like your mental and emotional health, just as it says, right? If you're not able to be well emotionally and mentally, then what do you really have, right? This next idea is spiritual richness, and this can be engaged however you see fit, whether that's through faith, whether that's through meditation, whether that's through other practices. A lot of people engage nature as something spiritual for them. So whatever that needs to be for you, but the essential takeaway from this is being able to find meaning and purpose in life that is greater than yourself. Okay. And you have to figure out wherever you are aligned in that aspect. Something else that I deem really important is time richness. And this is being able to allow yourself to reclaim time. People are constantly like playing catch up, and they're very guilty of this, constantly playing catch up, constantly trying to figure out things, constantly like just go, 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 go. And you don't really have time to seek out your personal interests, like really cultivate those relationships with others and those relationships with yourself. Like you're constantly on the go and you don't have time to really do that. I'm like, as it pertains to this aspect, like I actually took a week off last week to just kind of reclaim my time because I was just so rushed and just so overwhelmed with so many things going on. It's really important to be able to just like do that and reground yourself. The other thing that I highlight here is this aspect of physical richness, which is having that sense of health and vitality, right? And I think it's great if you even include like actual physical exercise, actual physical movement, dance, going to the gym, whatever that kind of looks like for you. But, having that aspect of actually moving, but actually having that sense of physical wellness, like you actually feel good in your body is important. All right, so I'm going to take you over to this next slide. Now, with this slide, um, I am just going to allow you to just kind of read through this and kind of mentally endorse, like if you actually feel that you have this. Again, this wheel is not exhaustive either, but it's just giving you time to just kind of take an accord of like, am I able to do this? Am I not? Do I want to do more of this? Whatever the case may be for you, but I just want you to just be able to just kind of take some space here for a second. So if you're noticing that as you kind of take space and you notice that in certain areas it's filled and in other areas it's unfulfilled, the question becomes at that point is, what are you willing to do about it? Right? If you notice that you're maybe unbalanced or in other places like you're filled, in other places you're not quite fulfilled, what are you willing to do about that to create more balance and to create more alignment in your life? So, as we're kind of thinking about that, I'm pulling it together and kind of adding another component to this. And so, what I want to kind of bring into this as we're taking account of things is understanding your attachment styles. Okay. And why is it important to understand your attachment styles when we're talking about becoming rich and what that looks like as it pertains to finances, as it pertains to emotions, as it pertains to all of these other things that we consider being rich. It matters. And the reason that it matters is because the way that you attach to things or people, relationships externally is the same way you attach to money and other aspects of your life. So if you're more avoidant in like relationships and what have you, you're going to find that you're going to be more avoidant in other things, right? And so I'll give you a prime example. There's a client that I see, and this particular client, like we had to kind of highlight for them that, hey, you tend to be a lot more avoidant. Like you have more of an avoidant personality style as it pertains to relationships. And then something else that we begin to notice with this client is you're also very avoidant as it pertains to yourself. Like you don't like spending time with yourself. You don't like looking internally to kind of flesh out what's going on with you internally. Like, and we notice that avoidant pattern come up in so many aspects of their lives that we really have to draw attention to. Like, when you notice that this is how you relate, like externally, this is probably how you also relate internally. So just something to just kind of put out there to put the pieces together as to why I'm speaking of it in this way. So let's kind of review what the attachment styles are. Okay, there's a little bit more into this, like where we can get a little bit more complicated, but we're not going to do that for the purposes of this particular presentation. So when we're talking about secure, we're talking about someone that is comfortable and they're comfortable with closeness and independence. When we're talking about someone who is more anxious, this person is going to fear abandonment. They're going to crave closeness, but at the same time repel closeness. So they're going to kind of be, well, I shouldn't say repel. I'm sorry. A person who's anxious, they're going to crave closeness, but it's almost like they tend to be in these types of relationships externally, where the more the person that they may be trying to engage with repels them, the more anxious they become. And they kind of go into this push-pull cycle with them. What we tend to see with avoidant people is that they value autonomy. and they create emotional distance. What I was talking about, that push and pull, I'm kind of drawing attention here that we tend to see these two go together a lot when we're talking about anxious style or attachment styles, where they create that push pull. Okay. And when we're talking about disorganized, we're talking about a person who is more just confused about being in any types of relationships, right? They have issues with trust and safety, and they typically are very inconsistent in how they engage. So I just want to also kind of plant this seed of knowing that these relational attachment styles, they're typically rooted in childhood. So that's when we tend to see them come up, and that's where it's kind of documented in our field in terms of where they come up. But I would say that there is more information and more knowledge coming to the surface, where we're noticing that some of these attachment styles can also be developed, right, as a person gets older, because I'm starting to see some of these things, like they may have been more this when they were a child, but now we're starting to see a kind of a shift and a change in that as they get older. And that's based upon just different ways in which they've engaged with other people. Now, how does this apply to money? Okay, so we're going to talk about, like, my little diagram here is kind of pointing you in terms of how I'm going to go about this. So when we're talking about, again, a secure individual who has more of a secure attachment style, we're going to see this person, they're going to have more of a healthy relationship to money. They're going to be more confident in their ability to earn it, to be able to make sensible choices. They feel like they can balance, they can spend, they can save, they can invest, and that they're okay. They have a deep trust and understanding that money goes out and it flows in. This is not going to be the person that's just like holding on to money for dear life or doesn't know how to utilize money as a tool, right? Because essentially that's what money is. It's a tool, and you need to know how to utilize it properly. A person who is more anxious, which is over here on this side of our spectrum, this person is going to be more hyper focused and more aware around the desire for money, but they don't trust their ability to earn it. It can be a kind of interesting dynamic to observe. But if they have built some wealth, they have a tremendous fear of losing it. The anxious attachment style in anything is very much rooted in fear, as I mentioned before. Okay. So this person, their thought processes, their mental health around these things is going to be very paranoid and fear related, about like being able to earn money or even being able to, like, they're going to lose the money or what have you. So they tend to not make the best decisions around their money and what have you, because they're so anxious around it. Now, our person that's more avoidant, we're going to notice for them that their style is going to be, sorry, I got to fix my screen here really quick. This person who's more avoidant, oh gosh, one second. I'm waiting on it to, I'm going to keep talking. So a person who is more avoidant in nature, they're going to be really entrenched in this idea that they don't need money. They're really not acknowledging the power that money can have in their story. Go back. There we go. All right, they're not going to really acknowledge the fact of how much money has to do with like their story and what they're doing in life. They're going to be more of a person who's going to probably miss opportunities because they're not taking the seriousness and the utility of money and applying it appropriately to their life. And then this person who is more disorganized, which is right here. And as I mentioned before, understanding that this person is also a lot more inconsistent around things. So what we're going to notice with this person is that they're going to be also very inconsistent around money. They're going to be very unstable around money, and their life is going to reflect that. Like, you're going to see a lot of instability around their life because they can't tend to make the decisions that they need to make that's going to help propel their lives forward in a positive way. So what they're going to do is they're going to be very decisive, very indecisive. They're going to vacillate between wanting to spend it and want to pull it back. And you're just going to see just those inconsistencies and misalignments in their life. Okay, as we've kind of went into that whole piece about understanding money, understanding the attachment to money, understanding how all of this kind of coincides together. What we're going to do is we're going to look at a money story. Some of you may not have heard of a money story before, and if you haven't, that's okay. Essentially, what we're going to be doing as we talk about a money story is really trying to understand what do we understand about money? what were we taught about money? A lot of our behaviors are learned. And because they're so entrenched and so ingrained in us, we don't realize that they're learned behaviors. So this exercise is going to help you to kind of understand what actually came from you and what you actually believe and what your parents kind of taught you about money and how it goes around and all of those sort of things. So something that I want to kind of bring out here is that I want you to understand that exploring money trauma can be rewarding, but it's also a revelatory experience. So you may remember some things, or some things may come up that you never really pieced together. So I just want you to just be aware of that and understand that. I only want you to go as far as you feel comfortable kind of going in this exercise. And maybe just taking down the questions or taking some notes so that you can maybe revisit it at another time, maybe by yourself, so that you can like release, take some time and sit with it. Or if you wanted to like revisit it with a professional, that would be something else that could be good for you. And when I say professional, I mean like a mental health professional to help you kind of decipher and dig through these things. So what I have listed here, it's just I have 5 questions in which you're just going to kind of take some time and reflect on. I usually break you out into groups, but we're not going to worry about that right now. What we're actually going to do is I'm going to give you maybe give you, it's 12:25. I'll give you about 5 minutes to kind of, that's like a minute per question to kind of reflect and kind of see like what have you come to know about these things and just kind of understand what your personal money story is. Okay? So I'll give you 5. Okay. I'm given 5 minutes for that. Hope that was what you needed. And if you didn't get to finish, by all means, feel free to, like I said, jot down some notes or screenshot this or, yeah, take a photo, something like that, so that you can further discuss this, either with kind of leaning into yourself or if you wanted to discuss with a mental health professional to help you kind of understand your attachment to money. Okay, so let's check in a little bit about that. Let's see what you guys are. Are you saying the let's check in? I hope so. Yeah, so let's check in about that. How did that feel? Any takeaways that you want to share? I'm only asking you to check in after this exercise because it's important to know that what our personal stress feels like and how it impacts our mental health and our body's personal responses to it. Um, just individuals, we can experience symptoms of anxiety regarding just the thought of money. And as I say that, I'm actually thinking about a client. Like the mention of money, you can kind of see the countenance of this client, like it just changes immediately. And of course, this is another client that is more avoidant as it pertains to money. But I just want you to just be able to just check in. How does it feel? How does it feel in your body? Are you feeling stressed? Anything like that. If you want to share, feel free to. Again, you would have to jump in because I can't see you, but you can see me.
Yes. Hi, Courtney. It's
Hi.
Demetria. I would say that it depends on what's happening at the current at that given moment. So sometimes I'm relatively in the middle
Mm-hmm.
because I know my story around money is that I tend to be conservative because of having that lack in childhood.
Mm-hmm.
So at certain points it does, sometimes it rises, but for the most part, I would say I'm centered, and that
Mm-hmm.
probably three, maybe two to I won't say some most of the time two and three, two, three,
Okay.
and four. I would say that yes,
Okay. So you said you're more centered as it pertains
yes.
to, but sometimes it may go
It
up.
goes, yeah, it
Okay.
fluctuates based on what I'm experiencing from an economic or from a stress
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah, I mean, as I was giving that example earlier, like I'm pretty secure, like as it pertains to it, like attachment style overall. But when I saw that $5 pineapple the other day, I was like, yeah, I kind of shot up a little bit here on my where am I feeling? Because I'm just like, obviously I'm gonna buy it anyway, but I'm just like at the same time, it's just like this is crazy. Like the economy, the climate that we're living in is just crazy. So now I appreciate you sharing, Demetria. Any other people that would like to share? I would love to hear from you.
Courtney, it's Latanda, and I would just piggyback on what you said because at some point, the things that we used to see value in, we
Mm-hmm.
don't value. Like, I don't buy Christmas cards or holiday cards or birthday cards because they're like $8 for something nine
Mm-hmm.
times out of 10 people throw away. So I think for
Mm-hmm.
me, although money hasn't been a challenge for me, I think my mom was always one, if we were broke, we never knew it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like she kind of kept that. And I always felt like my mom was prepared for any rainy day. And so I do think I
Mm-hmm.
bring that forward. But I do feel like there are just certain things I can't see spending money on, even though you're talking $8, right? But I'm like, I give Courtney a card and tomorrow she throws it away. That's
Right?
out, right? So is there another way to kind of look at that and make sure that that money value is adjusting, not
Mm-hmm.
because I don't have it, but because the value you place on it?
No, for sure. And that's a great point. And it's not even about like sometimes not having it. It's about like I need to kind of be smart in this climate of how things are. And that's another great point. Like I used to send out cards from my practice, like to, whomever kind of visited that year. Yeah, we've gone electronic. We no longer invest in sending those out because to your point, Lutanda, like it's just gonna kind of go in the trash or what have you. But then I'm also very eco-conscious of I don't want to waste trees either. So yeah, so it just kind of serves a couple of purposes. So any other thoughts before I kind of move on? Again, jump in. I can't see you, but you can see me.
Hi,
Yeah,
this is Veronica. I think for me, I'm balanced, but can kind of hover too in terms of like concern. Just I think growing up, like my parents were always conservative with money. Um,
Mm-hmm.
And also just even at like a very young age, we're focused on, I guess, us like managing our
Mm-hmm.
money. And so I think just over the years, like I've gotten more comfortable with even understanding like what I put value in. So like for me,
Mm-hmm.
I value experiences more. So um understanding like, okay, I might spend a lot on a trip, but it's something that I value, that experience or like connectivity with others. So
Mm-hmm.
that kind of helps me go maybe between like that 3 and 2 at
Mm-hmm.
times.
Cool. And I think you also raised another point, and as I was listening to you speak about what I was talking about, that richness, right? So you go on this vacation and it's just like you get so much richness out of that and you get so much memory and what have you out of that. So I'm just like, it kind of makes it worth it, despite of whatever else may be going on. It makes it worth it. So, but it makes you definitely think twice about like kind of what you're doing and how you want to do it, being very intentional, right? About how you do these things and carry them out. So I love that. Other thoughts? No? Okay, I'm gonna move on. I just wanted to kind of bring in like the point in, it's just like money runs deep, right? Whether you grew up with it or like even if like what Lutanda said earlier about like if you were broke, you never knew it, right? And that was something that I truly appreciated because I was having a conversation with some family a few months back, and it's just like just this understanding of they didn't even know that they didn't have, right? Because they were so rich in other areas, right? And so it's kind of like this broke bliss, but it worked out. So yeah, it's good to kind of know your story and kind of know like where you want to be intentional about becoming rich and just really having that holistic experience. All right, so let's talk a little bit about stress and how it affects us. It affects our bodies. We have here what WebMD said about 75 to 90%. I'm going to be very honest. I think that that's a very conservative number because the way I kind of view it, I'm viewing it at about 95 to 98% of ailments either being caused by stress or exacerbated by stress. Okay. And this is a very just real thing. And when we're talking about stress, stress is not always, as I kind of mentioned earlier, like the compoundedness of stress with everything that's kind of going on, like in your household, like finance wise, family wise, like it's a whole lot of stuff that kind of plays into that. So we have to be very aware of like what's happening. And I'm not going to even go again, this is going to be beyond the scope of this presentation, but even we have biological stressors that we don't even take into account for like every day. And when I say biological stressors, I'm talking about what we put into our body, how we kind of treat our bodies and things like that. All those things matter, right? So, but let's talk about how it affects you. So, stress we understand is the gateway to so many other things, but whether it be short term or long term. Um, what we're saying with this type of chronic stress is that it erodes the body and breaks down vital functioning. That now kind of further precipitates this vicious cycle. So when we're talking about stress, like I have a bunch of stuff mentioned here, right? That you can clearly see. But some of the other stuff that I don't have mentioned here that are like really big things that we should be aware of, like we have we have evidence just even psychologically how stress changes the brain, right? In the sense of it, like in some cases shrinks the brain, right? Because the brain is not able to manage all of these different things that it's being asked to do. So we really live in a very, very special time and age, right? So things that we need to know in terms of how anxiety affects the body. Okay, so I'm just going to be very kind of high level here in terms of what we can tend to see happening with a person experiencing more stress. They're going to have like this sense of doom, like it's going to be very much glass is half empty, not half full, right? We may see issues of like headaches. We may see a lot of stomach issues. For some people, anxiety doesn't present very straightforward, right? So we may actually see it presenting as them having stomach aches a lot or having headaches a lot. They may not actually understand or recognize that they're actually having issues with anxiety. What I see in a lot of my partners, particularly partners who may be having some issues financially, and in addition to all the other things that they're having within their home, if they have children, all those different things, we're having issues of irritability, a lot of like extreme fatigue. They're not connecting intimately anymore or anything like that. So we're seeing all of these things happening from a bodily perspective, but they haven't actually been able like to understand and know that they're having issues of anxiety, or that someone has diagnosed them with having issues of anxiety. But also, I'll just kind of mention these things here just really quickly. We'll have some issues with like insomnia. A lot of people, their shoulders are super high, right? Because they carry a lot of stress in their shoulders. And we have a lot of issues here. This is the big one, rumination, right? And when our brain is ruminating, a lot of times it can be uncontrollable. And the reason why it's uncontrollable is because our brain is trying to find a way out. That's how our brain works, because it starts to ruminate because it's like, we have this issue. We know we need to solve it. We don't know how to solve it. So it keeps kind of going in this loop, trying to figure out how to solve it. Another thing that we can see is just forgetfulness and ability to focus, and lack of ability to concentrate, some indecisiveness, and just that preoccupation with the internal world, which we can see here with the rumination. Okay. You may also notice just like increased heart rate, like even with your resting heart rate, just kind of sitting a little bit higher than it should, right? Some people may notice some issues with blood pressure. So it can just manifest in a lot of different ways. My only point of kind of bringing out this slide is just to kind of bring awareness to it. If these are some things that you've noticed, look into it, right? We'd much rather be aware so we can know how to manage it than to manage it, versus being unaware and just kind of letting it kind of take its course. All right. So depression, again, very high level. Okay, in terms of what I'm going to bring out here about depression. So my little diagram here kind of shows our little brain that's not very happy, but nevertheless, here it is. Okay, so people who may be experiencing some issues of depression, we may see more ability to be emotional and cry, being overwhelmed, irritable. They may withdraw and isolate. You may see a lot of people also tend to start to blame themselves, right? Have outbursts, things like that. Typically in teenagers and in our some males, we may see anger more from depression. They don't show it as more of emotions that's happening. It's more of kind of explosive kind of emotion versus the crying, the overwhelm, the irritability, and what have you. I also need to bring out high functioning depression. This is very common with a lot of my clients that I see that are more at a higher level in terms of where they are. It's high functioning depression. It's essentially like they don't have any time to kind of feel down or feel what they're feeling, like feeling the symptoms of depression. So they just keep going, right? And with that, like they're functioning, but it's a high functioning depression. And so they're struggling to keep things together. They're trying to maintain everything, but nobody really knows what's going on. They're kind of going through the motions of things, and people think that they're okay, but inside they're kind of a wreck, and they're just trying to hold things together because they feel like they have to. Okay. So just as a quick caveat, just because you may have some traits of this anxiety or depression that I'm mentioning does not mean that you have it. You would have to talk to your healthcare provider to really sit down with this and really figure out what you're experiencing, if they're not just traits, but if they're actually some things that you need to look into getting some additional support around. Okay. What if I told you we could do better? Okay. So if we could do better, like we need to understand that when you're stressed, your body is clearly on survival mode, right? Your body is just trying to get through what it needs to get through. It's trying to essentially find the finish line, right? Because it's just like, I can relax once I get to that finish line. But your body is literally in fight or flight mode all the time. And we're just not designed to be this way. There's a lot of research that's out there that kind of speaks about this. And when we're on the fight or flight, like we're trying to figure out all these things, we're constantly go, go, go. It really takes a toll on us because our body was just not designed to do that. And then when we take this and we put all the things about like the financial stress, and we put all these other things that are kind of happening in our home, how do we feel like that affects our well-being overall? It doesn't do very well. Let's just say that. So what we need to know is that even though these things are happening and we're functioning, the thing about being human is that we learn to adapt. We adapt, we evolve. But I think the bigger question here is like, do you really want to adapt and evolve to this constantly being your story, right? Like the point of this presentation, hopefully, was just to bring awareness to these things. Like, number one, like if you are struggling and having those sort of things happening, you're not alone in that struggle. Like we are really in a very tough time in this economy and in just this world in general. And then just even some of my just friends, colleagues, other people that I know, I would be remiss if I didn't mention like some colleagues are really impacted because they're not able to kind of work as they would normally work because they're afraid of like with ICE and things like that. So it's so many different things that are impacting us in so many different ways. And so I just want to kind of bring all these things out and bring it together. Like we need to find ways in which we can be intentional about cultivating more richness in our life. If it may not exist in all areas as yet, but we're trying to get there. So I just wanted to bring that out as we kind of move into this next slide. Okay. So we're going to just start here as some things that can be helpful. Okay. So when we're talking about mindfulness and mindfulness meditation in particular, it has been shown to combat the symptoms of mental health that I've discussed like earlier in this presentation. Obviously, meditation is not going to help you kind of get to a space financially of where you want to be. However, it can provide the stability and the clarity of mind to be able to recognize like what your attachment is and try to get help and support around reforming that attachment to do better overall in life. Okay. Yoga, which is a form of meditation, has also shown to decrease symptoms of anxiety by at least 54% in one study. I love doing yoga. It's a wonderful thing. And another thing about yoga is as you're kind of moving through the movements of yoga in this meditation is you're also being able to release a lot of traumatic material from the muscle as you're kind of going through that. So movement and various other exercise have been shown to decrease mental health challenges while releasing the feel-good endorphins. That's what we want for our brain. Being able to cognitively reframe is very helpful for combating stress and unhelpful thoughts. Sometimes we need to shift the negative thoughts into more realistic ones because a lot of times people can go into like this black or white thinking. And sometimes it's not black nor is it white. We just need to be able to understand what the realistic perspective is on it. So that we can try to get to a more positive place regarding it, right? And then the final thing that I placed here is just reaching out for support and assistance and knowledge to assist you with breaking generational trauma and patterns while increasing your agency and ability to regard your circumstances, okay? So just being aware of these situations. All right, so we're going to take a moment to actually put this mindfulness into play, where I'm just going to invite you to just do a quick mindful exercise with me as we get ready to kind of close this out, right? So we've kind of gone through a lot of things. I've kind of given you a lot of stressful data. I've kind of given you a lot of stressful things about how things can present in the body or what have you. Now I want to bring you down, right? I want to bring you down. I want to bring you down into a space of just being able to just find a moment of calm in your day. So if you are able, I'm just going to ask that like you can turn off your screen. I don't care. Like do whatever you need to do. Turn off your screen and just kind of take a moment and just you can either close your eyes or you can find a steady spot, whatever works for you. If you're going to find a steady spot, just try to focus on that one spot and not move as you're kind of going through the breathing and what have you. Okay. And so as we kind of go through this, I'm just going to kind of prompt you. And we're just going to just take some breaths. I'm going to probably hit my little thing and turn off my video too for a few seconds. And I'm going to bring you through like just some breathing. And as we go through that breathing, I'm just going to invite you to kind of do a body scan, right? As we've kind of brought up all this information, as we've brought up all this material, as you've kind of discussed your money story or even gave thought to your money story and all of these things that, we've kind of talked about, like, are you in alignment? How does that feel? All those types of things. Now we're just going to take a moment to just calm it down and kind of bring it all into a nice kind of container box so that we can kind of move throughout. All right. So I'm going to turn my video off and I'm just going to invite you to go ahead, take your space, whether that's finding your point in front of you, or if you're going to close your eyes, whichever works. What I want you to also keep in mind is to just, if you have anything crossed on your body, if your arms are crossed, if your legs are crossed or anything to that nature, I would just invite you to just uncross them. We want to find a more relaxed position. Okay. So as you're doing that, I just want to invite you to just take a deep breath in through your nose, just for a few seconds. And we're going to just hold it for a second, and then we're just going to release it through our mouths. So when we do the breathing in, it's going to be like probably a count of 4. We're going to hold it for just a second, and then we're going to breathe out for another count of 4. So we're going to breathe in again. Inhale through your nose. 2, 3, 4, and just hold it. And then just release it. 4, 3, 2, and 1. And take another deep breath in through our nose. 2, 3, and 4. We're going to hold it. And now just release it. 4, 3, 2, and 1. And I want you to just continue that breathing pattern. You'll find your rhythm as you continue to do that. I just want you to allow yourself to breathe and just release. It may feel comfortable to just put a hand on your belly so you can just kind of feel your diaphragm going in and up and down and your belly going in and out. If that would be helpful to help you to maintain your rhythm of breathing. So what I would just like for you to do is just take a moment as you're breathing. And I want you to just if you could imagine like you were turning your eyesight, you're kind of gazing inward instead of gazing outward. I want you to kind of start from the top of your head, like from your thoughts to what's kind of going on internally, like within your head. Just turn your eyesight inward and just really focus on, what are my thoughts like? Are they flowing? Is it just kind of worrying about something? Am I thinking about getting to the next thing? Am I thinking about my breathing? All of those things, just notice it. You don't need to do anything about it. Just simply notice it. Then I just want you to bring your attention down. Bring it down into like your neck area. Notice, is your neck tight? Are you feeling more tension in that area? And then sweep your attention over your shoulders. Notice, are my shoulders up? Right? Could they be relaxed down a little bit more? And then just sweep your attention down your arms, noticing if you have any tension there in your arms. And sweep that attention down into your fingers. Are your fingers like clenched? Or are your fists clenched? If they are, unclench them. Maybe just kind of flex your fingers in and out just a little bit. Then go ahead and draw your attention back up your arms, back up to your shoulders, and down your back. Notice in your upper back, in your mid back, and in your lower back. Notice how that feels. If you're sitting in the chair, do you feel supported? Does your back feel okay? Do you feel tension there? Does it hurt? Just notice it. Okay. And then we're going to sweep our attention back up from our lower back, back up into our shoulders. We're going to sweep over our shoulders and into the front of our torso. Notice how your heart is beating. Is it steady? Is it keeping the rhythm with your breath? Maybe we can just kind of focus in on our heart space and just kind of slow that down. If we're noticing that our heart is beating a little bit more elevated than it should. Maybe we can sweep our attention down into our belly and just noticing, what are we feeling? It's just after lunchtime, or it is kind of lunchtime. Am I hungry? Am I not? Is there tension there? Right? Do I feel butterflies in my tummy? Just noticing what's going on there. Am I noticing as my breaths, how that feels in my tummy? And then just go ahead and sweep your attention down into your pelvic area. And just notice, feel yourself being supported. If you're sitting, just feeling yourself being supported in that area, but just kind of sweep around your pelvis area. Notice if there's any tension there, if there's any pain, just notice. And then we're just going to go ahead and sweep our attention down into our thighs, our upper, mid, and lower thighs. Just noticing, even as they feel supported by the chair. How does it feel? Is there any pain? Is there tension? As we sweep over into our knees, just notice. You may want to just notice what's happening in our knee area as we sweep down into our upper leg and calf and our lower leg. How do our legs feel? Do they feel restless? Do they feel okay? Do they feel like there's tension there? Just simply notice it. Sweep down over your ankles. You may want to just wiggle them a little bit as you sweep down into your toes and your feet, feeling your feet planted firmly on the floor. But you may want to wiggle your toes and just notice how that feels. Okay, notice if there's any tension. Okay, and then once you kind of finish that portion, just continue to have your feet planted firmly on the floor. And we're just going to take a few deep breaths right there. In through your nose. Hold it. Just out through your mouth. Feel your feet planted. Feel yourself feeling supported. Take another breath in through your nose. Hold it. And out through your mouth. Allow that grounded feeling to rise up from your feet and just allow it to rise through your body as we're taking this additional breath. Feel yourself feeling grounded and supported. Take a breath in through your nose. And hold it. And out through your mouth. Wonderful. So you can just kind of sit here with your breath for a second if you'd like, or if you feel ready to kind of come back and join us back in session, you're welcome to do so. Just notice how that felt. Notice how your body kind of responded to you taking some breaths and taking some moments to just get calm and get grounded. And just notice what that felt like for you in that moment. Okay? All right. I don't know what's happening with that, but we're going to stop it. Okay. Okay. Questions and comments. I can stop this share so I can actually see you. And that's wonderful. Okay, there we go. Finally, I can see someone. Someone can see me. All right.
No
Questions,
questions, but
comments?
just wanted to say that I know we did this a little bit ago, and I was excited when we decided to offer this across members. We're celebrating our members, but awesome job. And I think
Yeah.
that so many times at least for me, I'm overconsumed with everything that's happening and
Oh, it's
not
our God.
managing, properly addressing and managing those stress levels. And then, to your point, everything that's happening from an economic and political standpoint, all of those things that are triggers. And so just appreciating being able to unplug from work and plug into this. So I think, great job.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And my hope is that despite of all of the things that we've kind of talked about, and we recognize that we're dealing with stress constantly, being my biggest takeaway from all the data that you're able to get and what have you, the tips, the tricks, all the things, is to be able to feel grounded in your body, right? We understand that stress comes. We understand that it's big, right? But it can also pass. We can have the tips, we can have the tricks, and we can get the supports that we need around that to be able to better manage it and better manage our mental health, to better manage our financial health, and really cultivate that richness that we want to have in our life if we are intentional about it. So I really appreciate you guys' attention, that I can just be here with you in this time. And I hope that you're able to take some nuggets away with you that can be helpful in your day-to-day life.
Thank you, Courtney. And we, just for the members, thank you for joining. Hopefully you had an opportunity. We had 3 sessions, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So this was a great way, Courtney, to finish this out, just to help us holistically celebrate our wellness, both financially and our physical and mental wellness. And so we will be sending out the recordings of this. I just noticed, just saying, there aren't any mails on this. And so that may be where
We talked about that.
right. We may need to make sure that we have men in our lives that they get this recording. I know I certainly wanted to pass this on, but thank you all for joining. We will be sending this out so that others can hear it, because all of the messages this week were really critical to each one of us individually and collectively as a community. So thank you guys. Have a wonderful day.
Have a
And
wonderful day, everyone.
enjoy the rest of I guess we're getting ready to head into the weekend. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you guys. Everyone have a
Take
great
care,
weekend.
everyone.
Bye bye.